E-hailing drivers in South Africa are calling on government to intervene over low salaries they receive from Uber and Bolt. They're reportedly receiving less than the minimum wage of just over 27 Rand an hour due to increasing commission paid over as well as high fuel prices. Let's speak about this with South African Ride-Hailing Association Treasurer Kabelo Matjila. Kabelo, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And more people are using e-hailing services. It's a booming industry, but the drivers aren't reaping those benefits.
Good evening to your listener, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to address the issues that we're facing currently in South Africa when it comes to the issues of e-hailing. If we could take a look back when e-hailing came into South Africa, or maybe I should just go a bit further and say, fast forward back in COVID, during COVID in 2020, most youth in South Africa, we had a high number of people that were unemployed, and they all saw e-hailing as a means of making an easy living, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. I remember some time back I was having a conversation with my fellow e-hailing drivers, comparing prices during COVID era and now after post-COVID. And I can assure you that prices that we used to do back in COVID days and now, prices have far much dropped into a three-quarter of what we used to do back in 2020. For example, we would do a trip from Gauteng to Emalahleni, that would used to charge about close to 1,000 Rand. Now you can do the same trip from Gauteng to Emalahleni, which is weekend. You will do it for about less than 700 if you are lucky. So those are the challenges that we've been faced with. Petrol has been going up every year, and the prices, they somehow go down deeper into, I don't know if I can say it's a recession of some sort, but then the issue that we're facing is we're having these e-hailing app giants that are in South Africa, and they do not put, or they don't prioritize on making sure that drivers can make a sustainable living with this e-hailing. As a result, you find drivers that are not giving you or giving commuters proper rendered service because now they're under stress. Drivers can't get enough sleep. They're always on the road trying to make means of these e-hailing services. We've got drivers that are depending on rental companies that are also asking an arm and a leg, because some rental agencies, they'll be charging about 2 point something, close to 3,000 on a weekly checkup, which is way too much, if I may put it that way.
So now drivers are forced to work longer hours for lesser of the money as well. Have you expressed these grievances to Uber and other e-hailing service companies as well, to let them know that some of the costs are just way too high to keep up with, particularly in South Africa, where we also have seen that petrol price increase happen repeatedly?
We have had a number of strikes. I remember in 2020 when, if I may mention a name, or let me just say, there was an e-hailing company, I would say, with the green labeling. I don't want to expose names as yet. Those guys were the first people to introduce what you call, there's a category called Go. So on our e-hailing platforms, we've got categories based on the year or based on the car when they first invented these categories. So the Go category was only meant for those cash model cars, right? And then you'll have your sedans that are only supposed to do the base, the normal base, and your excess. And then obviously looking at South African economy now and the length that we have to go through when it comes to COVID and the post-COVID people are trying to recover. Obviously, people will always try to, go for a cheaper service as far as they can. So then it means that this Go category has somehow killed the market for your X and also for your Bolt base. So which means now the drivers that are using bigger car are actually the ones that are going to suffer more because the bigger cars has more engine capacity, which now charge more fuel than the people or drivers that are driving smaller cars, smaller engine cars.
Can you explain to us, Kabelo, how the industry is able to get away with paying its employees under minimum wage, below minimum wage?
Funny enough, we are not being recognized as employees. Whenever we tried to raise that issue with the government last year when we were protesting, Uber and Bolt had somehow kept dodged the bullet by saying these people are partners, they are not employees, so we can't even take them to CCMA, labor court or whatever. So they're saying we are the subcontractors, so we work at our own time on everything, so we know exactly what we are doing. So now this put more pressure on drivers because now drivers need to put more hours for less revenue. Hence, you find most cars are not roadworthy. Drivers cannot maintain their cars because it's more of a hand-to-mouth living condition. So you only get a market on month end, and after the payday, then you go back to struggle. So you only work on what you call trying to survive and putting fuel on a car, and that's pretty much there.
When you talk about the lack of roadworthiness, also the drivers having to work longer hours as well, which also will impact on their physical and their mental health as well. What kind of impact has that had on the drivers too, who have to make ends meet, but also have to face being cranky, to be honest? If you're going to be working much longer hours and getting much less as well, that must also impact on the service that the people who are using e-hailing services are getting.
100%. So now, obviously, it's more of a sector. There's a chain where one party is not happy. If a driver is not happy, then it means the service also is going to render a profit. The fatigue also comes in. We have drivers that have been forced to sleep in the airports waiting for the bigger trips. They'll use the term big fish because they're trying to survive. We've got drivers that are sleeping in cars just because they want to push and try to make that weekly target, which is highly impossible because now they've been forced to make up money to pay a car, which they will need a certain, maybe you'll be paying around 2.5 weekly, and you still need to have money to survive or feed his family, and also have money to put on a fuel so that he can continue working for the next day or the next week. So it's actually a survival of the fittest. The weakest, obviously, now they've been forced to work overnight. That's where the hijackings comes in, the killings comes in, because now your concentration is now low because you are tired, your fatigue is kicking in, and the desperation also of trying to take whatever comes in because now you are actually forced to do it. And you end up, taking trips that are actually not in a safe area and then putting your life at risk.
Well, we really do hope for some intervention when it comes to this. Thank you so much for coming on and explaining the plight of e-hailing drivers there.